Complete story of Invincible Season 4, Episode 1. After some time, we are shown the heroes going about their usual routine of saving people. And here, we notice that Oliver is bigger than before, while people are still recovering from what happened with the Invincibles and Conquest. Mark also stops a giant lizard, although it seems that people do not think too highly of him anymore, so our boy starts thinking about everything that happened. Mark gets a message and tells his brother that they have to go stop a villain, although Oliver says he is tired and they have a small argument. Oliver thinks the other heroes can take care of it, so Mark decides to go alone because he wants to regain people's trust. On the other hand, Cecil tells Rex and the others to become the Guardians again because they have been working together during the last few months, and after thinking about it carefully, they all accept, but they make it clear that at the slightest suspicion, they will leave. Invincible arrives at a part of the city because supposedly they asked for his help, although suddenly a voice contacts Mark and tells him that the war that happened was not a tragedy. This person says that Mark gave them a better future since he believes that humans are leading the planet and humanity towards extinction. Suddenly, some kind of dinosaur attacks Mark, while explaining that the fact that he wants to correct his mistakes means there will be more problems in the future because saving one person now will mean condemning 10 lives later. The dinosaur breaks the armor covering Mark's wounds, but fortunately, Mark is already healed, so the battle continues until Mark manages to subdue the crazy dinosaur. Mark throws himself at him, ready to land the final blow, but suddenly, a guy appears in front of him, saying that he is the dinosaur, although he also says that in reality, the dinosaur controls his body to do bad things. The Guardians arrive, preventing Mark from doing something crazy, so Mark explains the situation to them and leaves. Later, he arrives with Samantha because it turns out they have dinner with her parents. However, dinner turns out to be very awkward because Samantha's father is still just as annoying as ever, and even more now that he knows Mark is invincible. At one point, they both talk alone, and Adam shows his concern about what happened to Samantha, so he tells Mark that basically the 2 times she almost died were his fault. At the same time, Samantha talks with her mother and feels a little uncomfortable since Betsy implies that being with Mark might not be the best thing for her. Afterward, Mark tells Samantha that he almost took out the dinosaur man because he felt that he had to do something so he would not run the risk of the crazy dinosaur returning. But luckily, the Guardian showed up before he did something insane. Samantha prepares some coffee that tastes horrible, and instantly something seems to happen to her powers without her noticing. On the other hand, some guys inspect the pipes because something strange is happening until they are attacked, since it is the Sequids preparing their army, and Russ says that the time has finally come. Meanwhile, a strange woman appears on Earth and starts absorbing energy, so she heads towards the main source. The next day, Mark apologizes to Oliver for what happened yesterday. Debbie is with Paul, who is about to leave because he doesn't want her sons to see him leaving the house, although he runs into them anyway. And instantly, Samantha arrives to tell Mark they were hired because someone is attacking the northern power plant. In this way, we see that the woman from before is looking for more energy, so she plans to take over the entire power plant and uses her staff to gather a huge amount of energy. Elsewhere, Art finishes designing Oliver's suit, which still has the same symbol, so Oliver says that he used this symbol when he fought against the Invincibles in Conquest, which is why he thinks that now the symbol belongs more to him than to his father. In this way, Debbie remembers the time when Art made Nolan's suit, which at first he refused to wear, and so Debbie tells her son that he can use whatever symbol he wants. On the other hand, the Sequids come out of the sewers to take over humans, and at the agency, Donald informs Cecil about what is happening with the energy, but they also find out about the Sequids, so they decide to leave the other job to Mark and Samantha. At the same time, Mark stops the woman and asks her not to cause more problems, although she refuses and attacks Mark. Samantha tries to defend her man, although her powers betray her because something strange is happening. The woman attacks Samantha, but Mark protects her until he takes away the staff that hurts him, and the woman explains that only the chosen can touch the staff of command. Then, Samantha knocks her out with one hard punch, and Mark asks how she did that, to which Samantha replies that apparently the woman's powers only work when she is holding her staff. That explains a lot. The Sequids keep taking over people until almost the entire city is under control, but the Guardians head to the area, while Britt, who is the new leader, says that luckily the agency prepared a plan for this kind of scenario. So in this way, we see that many agents are preparing a containment dome around the city to buy time. So Britt tells the Guardians that they will use the weapons they were given to take care of the creatures. The point is that a little toy known as a disruptor serves to shock the Sequids and make them release their host. So in that moment, they will have to take advantage and use a teleportation dart to send people to a safe place. Britt makes it clear that they cannot allow a single Sequid to escape because otherwise the entire planet will be screwed. So the Guardians get to work and begin the attack. In this way, the Guardians use the weapons to save people, but they realize they will need more help because the dome won't hold much longer. At the other place, Cecil arrives with Mark and Samantha to say that he needs their help. So Mark tells him that Samantha's powers are not working and decides to go alone. Mark helps the Guardians, but at one point, Rex realizes there are more life signs in the sewers, although Britt orders him to worry first about the people on the surface. However, Rex decides to go into the sewers while leaving his robot on the surface, so he deals with one host, but is attacked. Rex is cornered and is about to become a host, but luckily he manages to free himself in order to save the people and then fires the dart to escape. The Sequids attack Invincible, putting him in serious trouble because the dome's stability is at 4%, so Bulletproof approaches Mark to give him the disruptor. Mark breaks free from the Sequids' attack and grabs Russ by the neck, while Bulletproof comes rushing in, but the dome is on the verge of collapsing, so Invincible makes a difficult decision and kills Russ so that the Sequids cannot leave the dome, which leaves all his teammates shocked. On the other hand, we are shown Conquest, who managed to recover from all his wounds, so that brute says that they were idiots for not finishing him off, and he escapes from Earth, leaving everyone stunned. Episode 2. Now we go a little into the past, where we see that some asteroids are approaching the planet Viltrum, so those asteroids arrive and release some objects that spread across the planet, releasing a mysterious gas. Then we see a little of what life was like on Viltrum until we see a young Nolan instructing some Viltrumite kids regarding the teachings of Emperor Argall. The point is that Argall taught the Viltrumites how they should behave, although it is also said that a traitor killed him, and in the process his heirs were lost. At the same time, we notice that the kids are well trained because they know that the Great Purge made them stronger, and Nolan explains the next day they will have the confrontation in which 2 of them will die. Soon after, Nolan's parents appear before him and attack him because it turns out that this is the ritual he has to survive in order for a Viltrumite to become an adult. So a very Viltrumite-style fight takes place until Nolan is about to get destroyed at the hands of his mother. However, Nolan's father decides to save him because he says he fought very well, so he tells him that from now on, he is an adult who will fulfill Argall's will. Nolan receives his uniform and reunites with the others who also pass the test, although suddenly, something strange happens because the Viltrumites are attacked. In this way, we see the Viltrumites being massacred until General Kregg says that the asteroids that fell on the planet contained a biological weapon designed to attack Viltrumite DNA specifically. Upon hearing this, a person known as the Grand Regent orders them to quarantine the sick, but afterward they will have to lock down the planet and kill the non-Viltrumites who know about the virus so that their enemies never learn their weakness. Later, it is shown that the entire Viltrumite empire was completely affected by this virus, and to make matters worse, Nolan is also infected by it. But after some time, he recovers and sees that all of Viltrum has been devastated. Kregg explains that so far, they have not found a cure for the virus, so he clarifies that the surviving Viltrumites only managed to survive the effects, although they still have a reduction in their physical abilities. In this way, it is shown that billions of Viltrumites died because of the virus, and that is why they are all floating around the planet's orbit, as if they were having a Viltrumite sleepover. The most complicated part of the situation is that now they cannot reproduce properly because of the virus, but the Regent makes it clear that they will overcome this hardship and get revenge. In the present, Alan finishes hearing Nolan's story and realizes that Nolan's true mission was to sleep with other species to see which one was compatible with the Viltrumites in order to rebuild the population. That is why Omni Man tried to take control of Earth when he saw that his son had inherited his powers, and then both of them finally arrive at Telescria. Alan takes Nolan to Thadeus so that he can tell him that there are currently around 50 Viltrumites, and here, Nolan learns that Thadeus is that Viltrumite known as the traitor who turned his back on his race because of their vile behavior. Nolan explains that in reality, he will not join their cause and will only provide them with the weapons he found in his travels so that they can deal with the Viltrumites, since he does not want to involve his sons in all of this war. Thadeus asks that all of this remains secret because there is still a spy among them, so Nolan, Alan, and Telia take a ship called Venture that is totally wrecked so as not to raise suspicion. In this way, Nolan shows what their first objective will be, so they go in search of a weapon called the Infinity Ray that belonged to someone named Space Racer. He also explains that he left Space Racer buried for almost 100 years so that there would be no risk of his weapon no longer working, although unexpectedly, this bastard is still alive. Therefore, a small fight takes place in which Space Racer proves to be very strong, so Alan tells him what they are planning to do against the Viltrumites. At the same time, Nolan apologizes to the little Martian for burying him for so long, so the little Martian says he will think about it and heads to Telescria to speak with Thadeus. The next day, Nolan and Alan arrive at another planet to collect some Unopan scarabs, since these weird bugs have a compound in their shells that makes Viltrumites fragile against physical injuries. Therefore, the Coalition scientists will have to extract the compound and put it into darts. So the pair makes the next stop to find some beasts that were a huge threat to the Viltrumites. However, Nolan moved the planet closer to the sun, causing there to be no water anymore, and all of the creatures died because of this bastard. At the next stop, our duo comes across some Gildarians, and Nolan explains that the Viltrumites hired some people called the Krills to destroy them, although the plan did not work, and Nolan apologizes for what happened. The Gildarians reply that for the moment they will not be able to help them, but they say that there is someone on Earth who will be able to help them. The journey continues until our duo reaches Battle Beast's planet to look for him, but the inhabitants say that their champion left a long time ago to search for someone who could give him a great battle. At a certain point, our duo arrives at a planet where they find some creatures called Rognars, and here, Nolan explains that even the Viltrumites fear these creatures because they are very powerful, since he was the only one who survived the first expedition. Nolan also says that he asked the scientists to place a disc to block the sun of the Rognar planet in order to freeze them, and the important thing is that they want to take some Rognars onto the ship. The problem is that they are all super frozen, so Nolan asks Telia to move the disc slightly so that they thaw a little and they can take some Rognars. Unfortunately, that idiot captain makes them fire missiles at the disc while our duo finds some Rognars, but sadly, the ice breaks and the Rognars are freed to fight Nolan and Alan. Our duo tries to escape, but the Rognars complicate things because Nolan gets caught, so the fight continues and both of them receive a tremendous beating until Telia blocks the sun with the ship and manages to save them. As a consequence, Telia tells the captain that now she will be in command of the ship. And later, Nolan tells Alan that he knows the Viltrumites did terrible things, but they were only following Argall's orders to improve the galaxy from their point of view. The point is that Nolan thinks his race paid a very high price because almost all of them were wiped out by the virus, although Alan makes him understand that after that, they could have reflected and stopped doing evil things, but they did not. The group meets with Thadeus to tell him everything that happened, but alone, Nolan tells Thadeus that what they have now will not be enough to defeat the Viltrumites. Then Thadeus tells Nolan that this is exactly why they need him and his sons, although Nolan replies that he can never return to Earth again. So Thadeus takes him to a secret laboratory to show Nolan that he has the same virus that destroyed the Viltrumites, although he clarifies that this time it is improved because it will not leave any Viltrumite alive. In this way, Thadeus reveals that he was the one who created that virus, making Nolan angry since he was the cause of his race nearly going extinct. However, Nolan understands Thadeus's motives and decides to let him live because he knows the Viltrumites truly are bastards, so he asks that the virus be the very last resource used in case they find no other way to bring down the Empire. In this way, Nolan decides that he will go look for Mark, and elsewhere in the universe, we see Conquest who appears before Regent Thragg to ask him to kill him for his failure, although Freddie Mercury replies that he will not do it because he still has work to do.
Episode 3.
A few days later, we see Titan together with Machine Head, since the Machine Guy tells him that the brutal Liu did not die and wants revenge on both of them, since he already attacked him, although he adds that nothing happened because the Order gives him a certain kind of protection. Therefore, Machine Head asks Titan to return to the Order, but our rock friend refuses because he suspects there is something strange going on in all of this. Meanwhile, Cecil and Donald talk about what Invincible did because lately he has been making bloody decisions, so Cecil seems somewhat worried because he does not want Mark to lose control at some point and become a threat to Earth. Meanwhile, the Guardians talk about what Mark did since some believe Invincible acted correctly to avoid a bigger problem in the future. And Britt also makes it clear to Rex that he will have to follow his orders if he wants to step onto the battlefield. In the showers, Rex coughs until he spit a sequid out of his mouth, but fortunately, Monster Girl saves him, so both of them comment that maybe Mark did do the right thing because lately they have been depending on luck and not eliminating their problems completely. Mark thinks about what he did and tries to talk with Samantha, who our redhead cannot answer him because her powers are not working correctly. Elsewhere, Titan is with his family, but they're attacked by Magna-Tack, who is sent by that brute Liu, so a fight takes place between them in which Titan holds up like a champion until he shatters Magna-Tack and tells him never to mess with his family. Shortly after, Donald arrives to tell Mark that Cecil wants to talk to him, so at the agency, the brute tells him that he made the right decision, but that this is not like him. Then, Cecil shows his concern and says that he can lean on him for these complicated decisions because he does not want him to break emotionally. Meanwhile, Donald tells Sinclair to leave the agency for a few hours because Invincible is there. However, the crazy scientist goes to Mark to apologize for everything he did, although Mark gets angry and tells him to get lost because he will never forgive him. Therefore, Cecil tells Sinclair that Sinclair is trying to apologize despite having seen what Mark did to Russ. So Mark leaves while Cecil tells Donald that they still will not talk about conquest because Mark would completely lose it. Meanwhile, Paul and Debbie talk about living together, so Paul offers that they buy a new house, but Debbie starts thinking about it because in her current house is where she raised her children. Then, Debbie runs into Oliver, and the kid says that he feels his brother has been very angry lately. Mark returns home and talks with Samantha, who feels very sad because her powers are not working. Later, they are called for a job, but Mark does not want to go because he tells Samantha what he did to Russ. So Oliver offers to go, and in this way, he arrives with Titan, who was the one who requested the job. But the problem is that Titan has doubts because he's just a kid, so Oliver makes it clear that he is very strong too. On the other hand, Samantha talks to Rex about what is happening with her powers, but Rex says that everything seems normal in her body, and suddenly, both of them realize that those annoying Flaxons are attacking Earth again. In this way, the Flaxons attack people to capture them and take them to their world for some unknown reason. Therefore, the Guardians gather and say that the Flaxons learned from their mistakes and that they must again be using some device to prevent aging, only this time it is extremely improved, but they will have Mark's help. In this way, the Guardians fight against the Flaxons, but in the process, we notice that the Flaxons created special machines to deal with Invincible and Omni Man. The battle continues while they try to find where the emitter is that keeps the Flaxons from aging, because the problem is that at this rate, the number of Flaxons will surpass the city's population. Oliver and Titan fly through the city until they arrive at a hotel where apparently that brute Liu is hiding, so they finally find him and a difficult battle begins. Oliver fights the dragon while Titan fights the big guy, although things get quite complicated because Liu gives our kid a lot of trouble. So Oliver calls Samantha to tell her the situation and asks her to send Invincible to help him, but unfortunately, Samantha answers that Mark is busy with the Flaxon invasion. The Flaxons use Invincible invincible like a punching bag and also give all the guardians a lot of trouble. So Rex says that the emitter must be very well hidden and realizes that it could be inside Flaxen. In this way, Rex and Amanda head to the portal while their teammates cover them, although Cecil tells them to stop and not go through the portal. However, Rex and Amanda go in because it's the only way to destroy the emitter that keeps the Flaxens from reaching Earth. So in this way, Rex locates the emitter and destroys it with a bomb. So we see Invincible still fighting the machines until aging takes effect and the Flaxens start falling little by little. On the other hand, Rex looks around the Flaxen world and realizes that those bastards are preparing a huge army, so Rex tells the Guardians that they have to defeat the Flaxens once and for all. In this way, they all head to the portal to tear them apart, but unfortunately, one Flaxen notices this and decides to destroy the machine that opens the portal, which means that now, Rex and Amanda are completely screwed because they are trapped on the Flaxen planet. Suddenly, Invincible receives Samantha's call while the other battle continues, and Oliver is in serious trouble, although luckily, his brother arrives to save him, and together, they beat Liu to pieces until he is practically defeated. Then, Liu asks his subordinate to take his body, and both of them escape. But instantly, Mark beats Titan and tells him not to involve his family. Mark is about to do something insane again, but his brother begs him to stop. So both of them leave, while Titan realizes that something strange is happening to his hero. Later, Mark tells Samantha the situation, and she feels bad that Rex and Amanda are no longer here, although Mark promises her that they will still do something to solve the problems with her powers. On the other hand, Machine Head meets with the Order to tell them that Titan is back in the game, but that is not all, because it turns out that Liu also returned to the Order, and Machine Head is happy that all of his buddies are together again to make a lot of money. At night, Mark wakes up and realizes Samantha is not beside him because she went to the bathroom, so he asks if everything is okay, but Samantha seems strange because it turns out she's pregnant.
Episode 4.
Art realizes that Mark came to talk about what he did to Russ since he feels guilty because he killed an innocent person. But the real problem is that Mark almost made the same mistake when he saw that his brother was in danger. So Mark says that he feels like his father, but Art replies that that is not true, and instantly Mark returns the suit, saying he is no longer worthy of wearing it. However, Art makes it clear that if he had been the possessed person who is going to hurt others, he would be grateful if someone stopped him by any means necessary. Then, Art gives him a new suit, but Mark does not accept it because he still feels guilty, and suddenly, Samantha calls him to say that there is a job in hell. The Darkblood clan says that the vials will not be released, although a woman named Volcanica challenges them to stop her and gathers her group of magma knights for battle. Then, we realize that Damien is in this group alongside his sister Domina, so they all launch themselves on the attack and destroy many of the rocky ones. Therefore, Volcanica decides to intervene and fights against all of them. Although Volcanica puts them in trouble, Damien and his people do not give up, so they keep pressing. Unfortunately, Volcanica gets more serious and starts wiping them out until she destroys Domina. So instantly, she tells Damien to tell Satan that now she is the great beast of the underworld. Damien walks carrying the remains of his companions in a sack until he reaches Satan, who is a little annoyed because Damien's plans are not working. Then, Damien asks him to restore his companions, and Satan replies that it will be so. He also says that he is grateful to the Darkblood clan, who are loyal to him despite the fact that he is not at the peak of his power. In this way, Damien suggests that they try the ritual one more time because he has blood from when they killed the Guardians, so Satan restores his servants while Damien prepares the ritual. Therefore, a portal opens from which Invincible appears, and Damien tells him that he needs his help, although at the same time, it is revealed that Invincible had been dealing with Kahor. However, Kahor is already tired of looking for a suitable host and decides to possess the girl who visited his tomb earlier because the only reason he had not done it before was simply because she was a woman. Guy things. Meanwhile, Invincible tries to attack Satan because he assumes he is evil, but Damien stops him and tells him that he will explain things because hell and everything else are real. In this way, Damien tells Invincible that there is a woman named Volcanica whom they must defeat in order to return the throne to Satan. Then Damien reveals that Satan is not a bad person because in reality, the inhabitants of the surface live in the 6th age without knowing anything about the 5 previous ones. Then Damien says that the Vials ruled the planet for millions of years and the demons under Satan fought against them until they brought them to the underworld to keep them under control. Therefore, many demons sacrifice themselves, and without that sacrifice, humans would not have been able to develop. So basically, humanity owes a lot to Satan. Instantly, Damien explains that Volcanica wants to free the Vials, to send them to the surface and wipe out humanity, so he asks Invincible for help to deal with her. But Mark feels insecure because he is still struggling with his own thoughts. However, Mark agrees to help them, making it clear that he will not hurt anyone. So Damien takes him to an abyss, where he says Satan's crown is located, which grants him power, and apparently is guarded by a powerful monster, a demon, just what was missing. In this way, both descend while Mark asks if heaven also exists, although Damien says that this world does not have the balance humans think it does. Therefore, the demon explains that there is no one keeping score of good or bad deeds, and thanks to this conversation, he realizes that maybe Mark is dealing with his own problems. Both reach the bottom of the abyss where they see Satan's crown guarded by Cerberus, who attacks them, so Mark throws Damien upwards so that he will not be harmed in the process, and Invincible fights Cerberus, with us being able to see the battle until he finally recovers the crown and leaves with Damien to reach Satan quickly because the Vials are about to escape. Satan obtains his crown, revealing that it was imbued with the souls of all the defeated, and it was thanks to that he was able to rule, bringing an era full of peace. In this way, Satan begins transforming until he reaches a badass form and looks quite happy about it. Later, Damien tells Mark that they invented stories about hell to make humans good, although the truth is that people should not need to fear something to be good. Then he also explains to Invincible that sometimes one has to choose the lesser evil to make things go in the best direction, although Mark believes there must be another way without anyone being hurt. Instantly, Damien tells our boy that he needs his help to defeat Volcanica and keep the world safe, so they all prepare. But Damien realizes that his sister is still not recovered completely. Domina asks her brother to take her weapon so that he can defeat Volcanica, and at the same time, Volcanica watches as the Vials are about to be released. Suddenly, Satan and the others arrive at the place to fight Volcanica, so the group faces many of the rocky creatures, while Invincible takes Satan to Volcanica. The group wipes out the Magma Knights until they reach Volcanica to fight her hand-to-hand, so they give her a lot of trouble until they corner her. However, Volcanica starts turning the situation around because she reveals that she had never been serious and that before she was only playing with Damien and his clan so that they would bring Satan to her. Then Volcanica says that with this, she will be free to let the Vials purge Earth and prepare it for their rule, although Invincible intervenes to tell her that he will not allow that to happen. Mark uses Volcanica like a punching bag, destroying her several times until the hothead decides to retreat, saying that she will not forget this offense, and instantly, Mark takes care of one of the Vials trying to escape. Then Satan orders them to tell the demons to resume torturing the Vials so that they cannot escape, for which Satan thanks Mark for what he did, adding that he is quite strong. Therefore, Mark explains that he is half alien, surprising Satan. So then, they say it is time to send Mark home, but Satan tells his servant that he too will return to the upper world. On the other hand, Samantha tells William about the pregnancy, so William suggests that she should tell Mark because Samantha does not feel ready to have children right now. At the same time, Mark picks up the suit Art offered him, making the brute happy, so Mark looks more cheerful, and later his mother tells him and her brother that she plans to buy another house to move in with Paul. Her sons agree with that decision because they know Paul makes Debbie happy. Then Mark talks with Samantha about what happened in hell with Satan. Suddenly, Mark and Samantha are surprised because it turns out that Nolan and Alan have arrived on Earth, so Nolan tells his son that it is time to begin the Viltrumite War.
Episode 5.
Alan tells Samantha that Nolan has changed because now he is good, and at the same time, Nolan explains to Mark that his intention in coming to Earth was to reproduce. Then, Nolan tells him what they are planning to do to stop the Viltrumite Empire, but Mark still has doubts because of everything that happened on Earth and Thraxa, although in the end, he decides to help because he knows that otherwise, at some point, the Viltrumites will reach Earth. Nolan also tells Mark that he wants to speak with Debbie, so at night, the toughest couple in the system meets, and Nolan apologizes for everything he did. Nolan tries to explain his reasons for why he committed so many atrocities, explaining that spending 20 years with Debbie made him more human than Viltrumite, so he adds that he will spend the rest of his days repairing the damage he caused. However, Debbie replies that he can shove his apology where the sun does not shine because there is nothing left of the man she loved, and she asks him to leave. On the other hand, we see that a thug named Walking Dread is causing many problems until Tech Jacket appears and faces him, giving him a lot of trouble and defeating him thanks to his super suit. And thanks to this, we learn that Tech Jacket is a woman. Instantly, Soy's father tells her that there is someone who wants to see her because Alan appears to talk to them and tell them everything about the coming Viltrumite war. So Soy and her father accept that she participate because they know this is the right thing to do. At night, Mark and his mother talk about what is happening until Oliver appears and learns about the Viltrumite war that is coming. Then, our kid decides that he will help too because he was very useful when fighting the Invincibles and Conquest, and Debbie has no choice but to accept because she knows this is for the good of humanity. Elsewhere, Nolan meets Art, and the brute says that he surely was surprised to see that Oliver grew so quickly, although Nolan replies that he did not see him because he does not want to give him more problems. In the process, Nolan apologizes for what he did, saying that now he is someone else, so Art could repair his suit if he survives the coming months. But Art replies that he only works for heroes, and Nolan weaves a bit ashamed. Meanwhile, Mark and Samantha remember everything that has happened since they met until Mark asks what she wanted to tell him yesterday because he knows there was something important. However, Samantha replies that it was nothing important and only asks that he not die, so Mark promises that he will not die, but even so, Samantha feels sad. The next day, Mark and Oliver say goodbye to their mother, promising that everything will be fine, so both arrive at the ship and meet their father, but Nolan seems upset because he demands that Oliver return to Earth. Oliver refuses because Thraxa was destroyed and he will do everything possible to save Earth, so he leaves, saying that his father will not stop him from participating in the war. Then, Invincible tells his father that this is his chance to fix things a little with Oliver, since he tells him that he put the symbol on his suit in honor of him. Instantly, Soy appears before Nolan, while Talia orders them to leave Earth's orbit. So the ship departs, and Cecil wonders what will happen on Earth, because this is the first time in 20 years that Earth will be without Viltrumites. The trip of our group continues, and in the process, Mark gets to know Soy, so everything seems calm, but Nolan remembers the good moments with his wife and feels somewhat angry. Then, Alan asks Mark if everything is okay with his father because he notices he is very depressed, to which Mark replies that the conversation with his mother did not go as he expected. Suddenly, the alarms of the ship activate because the engine is about to blow up, so the main part of the ship separates from the rest, and a huge explosion splits the group. Mark looks for his brother, who luckily is okay, although instantly, everyone notices that a Viltrumite ship was the one that attacked them. To make matters worse, Conquest appears alongside Lucan and another Viltrumite, making Mark surprised because he thought Conquest was dead, so a battle between them begins. In the process, Conquest overwhelms Oliver, but our kid does not give up and pressures the brute until Conquest grabs him and is about to send him to the afterlife. Fortunately, Nolan appears to save his son and fights Conquest, while Alan and Soy fight the other Viltrumite. Conquest reminds Nolan that he is a traitor, and that is why he will kill him. But fortunately, Mark appears to help his father, and says that he is sure he killed Conquest. However, Conquest replies that the truth is that his girlfriend did most of the work, and gets on his nerves by telling him that he wants to taste her blood again. Mark launches himself into the attack and gives Conquest a lot of trouble while the others continue fighting, so Alan comments that they were fools to want to face them with so many soldiers. However, soldiers subjugated by the Viltrumites appear to help the Viltrumites, so things get complicated, and in the process, Nolan tells Oliver to go to a nearby planet so that he can breathe. Conquest notices this and knocks Invincible back to go after Oliver, so he is about to kill him, but Invincible crashes into him to tell him that he will not let him breathe again. Conquest pressures Invincible in many ways to try to make him let go of his neck, but Invincible does not yield and keeps choking Conquest. Meanwhile, the battle in space continues, but at one point, Nolan asks Alan where his sons and Conquest are, so Alan replies that apparently, all of them went to the nearby planet. Nolan tells Alan to have everyone take cover and goes to look for his sons, so Alan and Soy are left alone and try to escape from the Viltrumites. Soy tells Alan to follow her, and both fly to the Viltrumite ship, while Alan feels confused by Soy's plan, although at one point, Soy pulls him in to hide. On the planet, Mark keeps pressing Conquest, who tries to break free of his grip but cannot, no matter how much he hits him, so Conquest slams him into different places, but our boy stays firm in his grip, while Conquest starts turning purple. Nolan arrives with Oliver to ask where Mark is, and at the same time, Conquest severely injures Invincible in order to get free. However, Mark does not let go of the brute, no matter how much Conquest keeps ripping out his insides, so a terrible bloodshed takes place, until at last, Conquest dies. Instantly, Nolan and Oliver arrive at the place and discover that Mark defeated Conquest, but the truth is that he too is on the verge of death. On the other hand, Thadeus tells Telia that they made the right choice to survive, and that she must trust Alan and the others because they are the strongest members of the coalition of planets and will surely survive this incident. At the same time, Lucan and his companions continue looking for Alan and Soy, but his companion asks about Conquest, and Lucan replies not to worry, because that brute knows how to take care of himself. Then, it is shown that both Alan and Soy are fine because they managed to hide inside the Viltrumite ship itself, so they have no choice but to wait for the perfect chance to escape, although everything will go to hell if they reach the planet Viltrum, because they will use them like punching bags. Episode 6. Thadeus informs the members of the Coalition of Planets that it is time to fight against the Viltrumite Empire and give it everything, because now they know their weaknesses, while at the same time, Thragg also tells his men that they will not submit to the Coalition of Planets. In this way, the ships of both sides begin causing chaos, and Thragg makes it very clear that the Viltrumites will win this battle so as not to fail Argall's convictions. On the other hand, Nolan is holding a farewell ceremony for Conquest, although his son criticizes him because that brute was a terrible person, but Nolan replies that he was always a loyal soldier to Viltrum, who only followed orders. Later, Nolan informs them that Mark will recover over time, and if they are not moving from that place, it is because they are inside Viltrumite territory. Kregg informs Lucan and Kregg that they have to move to another place because the Coalition of Planets plans to take control of a planet, so he makes it clear that they must prevent this at all costs. Upon hearing this conversation, Alan is glad, since he tells Soy that in this way they will be able to escape and go with the Coalition of Planets. Meanwhile, Nolan feeds his son, and surprisingly, Oliver likes the strange bugs a lot, although this little bastard still acts angry with his father when he wants to talk to him about Andressa. The next day, Nolan comments that Mark needs more food, so they have to find a liquid that contains more protein so that his recovery will be optimal. Then, both head to a cave where they find some eggs being protected by their mother, so Nolan and Oliver fight the beast until Nolan is about to kill her. However, Oliver opposes doing that because she was only protecting her eggs, and in this way, he makes his father understand that they will not be able to get more eggs from Mark if they kill her. Alan and Soy arrive at Taliscralia, and one of the allies is surprised to see that Alan survived, although our one-eyed friend finds it strange that he is so surprised. At the same time, Alan meets Battle Beast, who is found by the Coalition of Planets, so the furry guy complains to Alan because he promised him many battles and glory. Therefore, Alan tells him about the war, and later learns that Mark, Oliver and Nolan have still not arrived, so they will simply have to wait for them in case they're still alive. Talia also tells him how things are going regarding the planets that remain under control and those they managed to free. However, Talia clarifies that things are not going very well, so Alan tells her that everything is about to change for the better because now they have powerful allies. Nolan and Oliver talk, so Nolan says that in reality, he did appreciate Andressa because she helped him when he felt lost, and he simply lied so as not to hurt Debbie more than he already had. Then, Nolan says that Oliver was not a mistake either, and that he will do everything possible to make up for the mistakes he made, which makes Oliver calmer and improves their relationship. At the same time, the battles against the Viltrumite Empire across the universe continue until the coalition of planets manages to recover many of the planets that were conquered by the Viltrumites. Meanwhile, Nolan and Oliver realize that Mark has recovered a lot and is about to wake up, so Oliver tells his father that he will miss this place where they became closer. On the other hand, Thragg is surprised that the coalition of planets is winning the battle, so Kregg explains that this happened because they deployed powerful allies to handle the Viltrumites who are alone defending their territory. Then Thragg orders that they will attack Talisquaria directly. At the same time, Oliver tells his father that he feels very different from humans, since apparently this weirdo even likes lobsters, but in a dirty sense. Instantly, both realize that Mark is no longer where they left him, so our boy is shown at Conquest's grave, trying to remember what happened. Mark meets his brother and his father, who tell him that you were the one who killed that brute, although Nolan makes it clear that they have to leave because the war is not over yet. On the other hand, Thadeus speaks with the heads of the coalition of planets to tell them that he knows there have been many losses, although he emphasizes that the fight must continue in order to defeat the Viltrumite Empire completely. Meanwhile, the spy disables Talisquaria's defenses, so the Viltrumites launch a surprise attack to destroy the entire territory and generate a terrible massacre. In this way, the brutal Thadeus faces Kregg, while battles happen all around Talisquaria until Anissa is about to kill Zoe. Fortunately, Invincible appears, saving Zoe, so the different battles continue, until Mark tells his brother to follow him to destroy the Viltrumite ship. In this way, the ship is destroyed and the Viltrumites are put at a disadvantage, so Thragg orders them to retreat. But the problem is that the destroyed ship is about to cause a huge disaster. Fortunately, everyone manages to get rid of the ship, and afterward, they help the people who were affected by the battle, although Alan is shocked by all the losses that they suffered. Instantly, Talia reports that someone had to disable the defense system for the Viltrumites to get in, so they all confront the one they think is the Viltrumite spy. However, they realize that the real spy is the other bastard, and they make him reveal that Thragg and the others will return to the planet Viltrum to plan another attack when their soldiers are all together. Then, Thadeus smiles because he says that this will be the perfect chance to attack Thragg before they gather their strength completely, since without their leader, it will be easier to deal with the rest of the Viltrumites. Therefore, that brutal Thadeus says that the best thing will be for everyone to go to the planet to end this war for all eternity, and in this way, the Viltrumite regime will disappear forever.
Episode 7. Now, we go a little back in time where we see that a species oppressed by the Viltrumite Empire causes a disaster because they want to resist being subdued. Then Kregg says that the best thing will be to eliminate a large part of their population so they do not create more disturbances, although Thadeus says that this species should instead be viewed with respect because they are showing the courage to challenge their oppressors. However, Argall asks Thragg what he thinks, so Thragg replies that that species must be educated because their weakness is an offense to the natural order of the universe, and the other alternative will be to exterminate them completely if they resist. Later, Thragg speaks with Argall to tell him that Thadeus used to be the most ruthless and strongest, but there came a point when he became soft. Therefore, Argall suggests to Thragg that he kill Thadeus if he believes that his weakness is harmful to the Empire, and later Thadeus ambushes Argall to kill him. The next day, a commemoration is held for Argall's death, where Thragg makes it very clear that someday Thadeus will pay for his betrayal. Thragg also makes it clear that they have to eliminate the weakness of their empire so that they can continue prospering, and instantly he says that from now on he is the regent of Viltrum until one of Argall's heirs is found. In this way, Thragg orders the Viltrumites to begin the Great Purge, making everyone beat each other to pieces left and right, and the chaos is shown until Thragg orders that it is enough. Later, Thragg says that they will continue taking control of the entire galaxy because the whole universe belongs to them. In the present, the mustachioed one says to Argall that he has failed him, but he will not fail his people. On the other hand, Thadeus once again repeats that this is the perfect chance to kill Thragg, since if they defeat him, it will be easy to deal with the remaining Viltrumites. In this way, they head to the planet, while Mark leaves a message for Samantha in case he does not return, and at one point it is said that Thragg is the most powerful Viltrumite in existence, so much so that even Nolan is nervous about facing him. At the same time, Nolan talks with Thadeus to tell him that he knows Thragg must die to bring down the Viltrumite Empire, although he fears for the other Viltrumites since his sons also belong to this race, and Thadeus wants to exterminate them all. Then they arrive at Viltrum's orbit, where they see the ring of Viltrumite corpses around it, so Nolan explains that this was because of the virus that killed almost all of them. Our group keeps moving forward because their goal is to kill Thragg, although suddenly they run into him and are ambushed by more Viltrumites. Thus begins a great battle between both factions, where the punches do not stop raining down, and things seem even because Thragg does not intervene. Suddenly, Space Racer appears, bringing some Ragnars that fight the Viltrumites, so the beasts keep the Viltrumites very busy. Nolan takes the opportunity to attack Thragg, but Thragg dodges and hits him, making Nolan crash onto the planet's surface. Thragg appears before Nolan to tell him that he wants to talk, so Thragg asks Nolan to return with the Viltrumites because they will forgive all his mistakes. However, Nolan refuses to return with them, and Thragg reproaches him for allying himself with the man who almost caused their extinction. Although Nolan emphasizes that Thadeus did it so the Viltrumites would stop abusing other species, then Thragg takes Nolan elsewhere to try to make him remember Argall's teachings, namely that they should rule the universe, but Nolan still refuses to return with the Viltrumites. Nolan asks Thragg to reconsider because the entire galaxy is against them, so the best thing would be for him to accept the conditions so the war can end once and for all. Thragg realizes that Nolan will not understand his reasons, so he prepares himself and lands a blow that sends him to infinity and beyond. In this way, they reach space, where the useless Oliver decides to attack Thragg, so Thragg destroys him, making Invincible furious and attack him. Therefore, Mark tells Thragg that he killed Conquest and that he will defeat him too, but Thragg tanks his punch as if it were nothing, and the battle continues. Thragg humiliates everyone because he shows what he is made of, until Nolan appears to tell his companions to follow him and do something. In this way, Nolan asks Space Racer to fire his weapon toward the planet, so Thragg realizes what they are trying to do and flies toward them to stop them. However, the attack reaches the planet, while Nolan, Thadeus, and Mark descend like a giant comet to slam directly into Viltrum's surface. The trio continues tearing through the entire planet and causing destruction in the process, so the planet keeps shattering and the trio continues pressing until Viltrum is completely destroyed. Everyone is affected by the planet's destruction, and Mark asks where his brother is, while the Viltrumites are shocked by what just happened to their planet. Thadeus suggests that the best thing will be to surrender, but suddenly, Thragg appears, severely enraged, and in an instant tears Thadeus apart, leaving only his torso to avenge Emperor Argall. Everyone is shocked by this, so Thragg attacks Nolan to reproach him for not accepting his offer and for destroying everything important to the Viltrumites. Thragg gives Nolan and his son a terrible beating, making it clear that he will make them suffer slowly for what they did, while in another place, Alan and the others struggle against the remaining Viltrumites. Then Space Racer suggests to Alan and Soy that they will have to leave, because right now they cannot help Mark and the others, so those bastards escape, making Kregg angry. Meanwhile, Thragg continues tearing Mark and his father apart, so Mark feels true terror and asks his father how they could defeat Thragg, but Thragg turns Nolan into a donut and then tortures Invincible. Although strangely, at one point Thragg stops while his soldiers ask him to kill Mark because he destroyed the planet Viltrum. Thragg says that very few Viltrumites remain, so Kregg asks what his orders are, and Thragg simply decides to leave.
Mark and Nolan drift through space for a very long time until Alan and the others finally find them. So after 2 weeks of the battle, Mark wakes up and finds Alan. Mark also sees his father, who is still alive, while Oliver is still recovering from his injuries, although they all wonder why Thragg left them alive if he could have killed them. Later, Alan tells them that now he is the new leader of the coalition of planets that will destroy the Viltrumites, but Telia says that she has no idea where those bastards are until Mark assumes that they are on Earth.
Episode 8. Now it is shown that the Viltrumites are in Earth's orbit, so they all descend to the planet and cause terrible destruction, ending many lives in the process. However, it turns out that all of this is in Mark's thoughts, so his father recommends that he calm down because they do not even know if Thragg and the others are really on Earth. Then, Alan asks what the plan will be in case the Viltrumites really are on Earth, but he notices that Nolan and Mark do not know what to answer. Shortly after, it is reported that they are already entering Earth's solar system, so Nolan recommends that the best thing will be to descend to Earth quietly so as not to attract attention. Unfortunately, Mark rushes out to reach Earth and examine it, but he is surprised to realize that everything is fine on the planet, which gives them some relief. Mark arrives with his mother to tell her that they had to leave Oliver at Telescria so he could recover, but instantly, he sees Thragg holding her by the neck, about to crush her, although this turns out to be a vision, so Mark says that he will go look for Samantha. Debbie talks with Nolan to reproach him for allowing Oliver to be hurt, and for returning to Earth, although Nolan replies that he is trying to make up for his mistakes, but Debbie doesn't care. Then, Nolan reminds her that she believes in second chances, so he asks her to give him the chance to show her the new person he is, making her think about his words. On the other hand, Mark arrives with Samantha, who tells him that she recovered her powers, and also explains that now she looks a little more careless because she still does not feel very confident with her powers and is eating like crazy. However, Mark says that lions eat a lot of meat too, but he also shows his concern for what could happen with the Viltrumites, since Earth will not be ready to face them. At the agency, they open a portal to try to find Rex and Amanda, although everything becomes chaotic because some kind of monster attacks the place until Donald shuts down the portal to save Sinclair. Therefore, Cecil decides that they will cancel the search because Rex and Amanda will have to find a way back. And in Telescria, all the leaders reproach Alan because they have no news of the Viltrumite. The leaders make it very clear that all the Viltrumites must be exterminated because no one will be safe until that race goes extinct forever. Although Alan replies that there are Viltrumites who helped them in the war, such as his friends. Then, the leaders imply that Thadeus simply used Mark and his family to achieve his purpose, so Alan responds that he will decide what they will do with the Viltrumites when they find them. Mark tells his friends everything that happened against the Viltrumite Empire as he continues having traumatic visions. Elsewhere, Debbie talks to Paul about what happened. Then, Paul suggests that she should go see Oliver on Telescria because that is part of her world, and it is also clarified that the two of them ended their relationship some time ago. At night, Samantha tells Mark the reason why her powers were failing, so she says she will confess everything. But Mark once again has traumatic visions of Thragg killing Samantha. Mark returns to reality, and Samantha tells him that she had to get an abortion because she found out she was pregnant shortly before Mark left, so she was very afraid of having to deal with the situation alone, and Mark comforts her over what happened. The next day, Nolan arrives at the mountain where he beat his son nearly to death, so he remembers everything he said to him at that moment, until Cecil appears before him. Nolan says that he truly regrets all the suffering he caused on Earth, but he also tells him that the Viltrumites are still a threat, making Cecil worried. Nolan adds that he will stay to defend Earth, but Cecil makes it clear that he should only intervene when the Viltrumites appear, so he suggests that the best thing will be for him to leave the planet for now. Meanwhile, Mark feels guilty for having left Samantha at such an important moment, and also feels the pressure that the Viltrumites could do something crazy at any second. However, Samantha calms him down by telling him that they will be prepared for whatever happens, so Mark calms down a little, trusting her words. Then, Nolan tells his son that they have almost finished installing the network of sensors to detect the Viltrumites, so he will go to Telescria to see how his brother is doing. Debbie appears before them to tell Nolan that she will go with him to see her son, so Debbie tells Mark not to worry, and her parents leave. At the agency, Cecil asks Mark to stay ready for any emergency with the Viltrumites, although Mark again has visions in which Thragg tells him that they will not be able to do anything to stop them. Mark asks Cecil to give him professional help to deal with his trauma, so Cecil tells him that it will be done, and they will take care of the report afterward.
Later, Mark is at home and tells Samantha that he never felt his house so empty, so Samantha recommends that he go fly around to clear his mind. Mark flies all over Earth, looking very calm, until he sees a familiar silhouette in the distance because it is Thragg, and Mark thinks it's another vision. However, it turns out this is the real Thragg, who tells him that they are on his planet. So Mark launches himself at him, but his blows don't even tickle him. Then, Thragg tells him to calm down because otherwise they will wipe out Earth. So Thragg explains that he was appointed Grand Regent to secure the future of his race, although now only 37 Viltrumites are left. Thragg says that number is enough to destroy Earth completely, which would be a fair revenge for what was done to the planet Viltrum. Instantly, Thragg says that from now on, Earth will be the home of the Viltrumites, making it clear that they will live among humans without interfering in any matter, since all they seek is to rebuild their race. Therefore, Thragg makes it clear that if anyone wants to ruin his plans, they will not hesitate for a second to cause a massacre. So he offers Invincible a truce so that there will be no conflict between both sides. Mark gets angry hearing these words and tries to tell Thragg that there is no way he will accept such a crazy proposal, but after thinking of all the negative consequences, Mark decides that he will accept the truce. Then, Thragg says that the universe is strange because Mark has practically become the savior of the Viltrumites, so he leaves, saying that Mark saved many lives and he will never hear from him again. On the other hand, Talia gives Alan a message that Thadeus left for him in case he died, and in this message, Thadeus makes it very clear that they have to exterminate all the Viltrumites in order to prevent the universe from being threatened again. In this way, Thadeus guides him to the place where the Viltrumite virus is hidden, and says that he hesitated to use it because it could affect those who have genes similar to the Viltrumites, such as Mark and all humans on Earth. Then, that brute Thadeus tells Alan that he has to use this weapon to exterminate the Viltrumites completely, because only then will the universe truly be safe.
And let me know in the comments, do you think Mark made the right choice accepting the truce? If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button and subscribe for more Invincible content. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.